All right, sports fans, we are back with a FC one-on-one, and I always like to open these up with some different creative ways. I don't know. Now you're a colleague, Amanda, but you're my friend. We've known each other so long. Gosh, when I'm 90 and you're going to be like, I don't know, 45, but we'll have known each other so long.
Good.
But we've been doing conversations, having some great pitching conversations. And I was just mentioning to you that there's no way we could talk about the aspect of pitching without bringing you back on. You were one of our original resident experts when we were doing the podcast over at the warehouse. And so Amanda Freed Katchka, we've known each other a long time. Really, the topic that we're going to talk about is not just pitching, because lots of people know how to pitch, but I kind of get in this pocket of, but do you know how to win? You know, what's the difference between pitching and winning? So we can't have this conversation without me having to remind or inform people that you are an All-American out of UCLA, and this is the embarrassing part for you. But here's the thing that jumps out, and I remember having a podcast with you. My gosh, Amanda, in 4 years, your ERA is under 1, so a .94 ERA. We just had Courtney Blades-Rogers on last week in a .97, which I was like, holy crud. And in the back of my mind, I remembered the numbers with you. I think Amanda's got that, but .94 ERA, again, at 43 feet. So, and that might be a question too, that the longer distance to try to get the ball past the batter, but maybe more time to deceive the batter, right? Career 321 hitter, you have to throw that in. Can't just give you the nods of what you did in the circle. So you were holding down, I remember you in the number 2 spot with UCLA. Was that kind of
1 and 2. When Tasha came in, I slipped down to 2.
Yeah. Understandable, right? So definitely success. The batter's box, and then you've got 97 wins, just short of 100. Team USA, boom, 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 blah, blah, blah. The biggest thing that, again, I want people to know is that you were part of, I want to call them the greatest generation of softball players, because if you look at that whole generation, and we were just watching a video with Veronica Nelson, and just all of the great players, and helped propel our sport from where it was, took it through the gold medal, the notoriety of the College World Series, everything heightened with your generation of players. So, I've known you a long time, but man, a pretty special stuff. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of pitching right now. When I ask you about, pitching, like, when you're working with pitchers and you're an instructor, is there an area, because we don't want to ignore mechanics, we don't want to ignore the physical aspect of things. Is there an area that you see or you feel pitchers really need to develop in? Is there an area that you see that they're lacking and that you tend to target? I can kind of see you working in the corner of the warehouse and different things you would do. But is there something that stands out? I wouldn't call it a focal point of your lessons, but sometimes it's something you find yourself addressing a lot. Is there anything that stands out?
I think just understanding their pitches, because you're right. Like, we go over a lot of mechanical things. I think mechanics are really important for the safety, the health of the arm and longevity of pitching and all that stuff. And better mechanics increase your speed. They allow you to throw more things. But really, I think for pitchers, you're not going to be great at every pitch. So we see what you've got, and then we try to figure out, okay, what's the best way that we can approach these pitches and use them against the hitters. So having that one really good pitch, we got to get out of thinking that it only does one thing and start to think about how you want to set a hitter up. If you just had that one pitch, you could have a fastball and a drop ball, and you can get any hitter out. You just got to use them the right way. So I think that's a lot of what we address is just, okay, what do you have? What are your strengths? What do you need to work on? What's a setup pitch? What's a go-to pitch? What's knowing you have to use them all. But I think just really understanding who they are as pitchers and how each of their pitches can serve a purpose, and just being confident in knowing that.
Kind of like tools in the toolbox. So let's take a look at what you have, and then you're basically asking them, how are you using it? Which, when we talk about, there's pitching and then there's winning, right? So it's like hitting. There's a lot of players that understand what they're doing with their body, but if we're coaches and we're acquiring a pitcher, and a pitcher has a mindset or an understanding of winning and the competitive aspect of it, I mean, that adds value, right? And so how would you describe the difference? I mean, you're a winning pitcher. What is the difference between pitchers and you see a lot today that they're well-intended, but they've been so instructed to do things a certain way. What separates a winning pitcher from someone who's pitching?
Oh, gosh. That's a tough one, because it's all in your mind. It's all mental. And I know that you can be a very good pitcher hit your spots, have all the movement, have a lot of speed, have a great changeup, but you have to have like a will and a mentality to attack hitters and to be flexible and to do things that maybe you haven't practiced in practice and do it in the game. Throw to results more than for the strikeout or for the spot. For me, I visualize when I'm on the mound, the results I want. And it's not just, I want to hit my spot with a pitch. If we just get into that routine of hit my spot, hit my spot, hit my spot, we're not thinking the game. And I think that becomes a really important piece. So you got to keep the whole game in perspective. So when runners are on base, ideally, what do you want the ball to do? Can I throw my pitch to get the result that I want, to get this teammate involved, bring her in? So I know that there's so many times where, runners on first and second base, and I knew I wanted to get a force out at third. So I'd look at my left side of the infield and say, okay, hey, ground ball coming your way. And then I would throw to the pitch to get that result, and you don't always get that result. I can't dial it up like that,
Right.
But it's just always thinking the game in that way, I think is what separates. And then just being mean, just being a little bit of mean, out on the mound. We talk a lot about the talk track that goes through your head, and you could be the nicest person in the world, but at the end of the day, you got to be in attack mode. The minute you get on the mound, you gotta want to barrel them over and make a move. And if you hit somebody, you hit somebody, but you got to prove a point with your pitching.
So you're describing competitiveness. There's a certain competitive aspect. And when you're describing those situations, Amanda, it's funny. The first thing I thought of is like, we could be playing kickball in second grade and we're setting up the situation to get the runner out at third. You play softball a certain way as you would a slow pitch game or recess or anything, just to play. And then, hitting spots and swinging the bat a certain way there's more. Don't you feel like there's more players playing the game that way today? And we want to create that balance, right? I mean, obviously we want to know what we do. We want to enhance, the skills that we have, but because the game is being played at a very high level, but you're talking about being competitive. So being competitive is something that you naturally had, and then combined with the way that you grew up. How many times do I take you back to the cul-de-sac and playing with, your friends on the street and stuff like that?
Yeah.
There's that aspect that might be natural for some players. Do you think that a winning mindset can be taught, or is it something that's only innate?
I don't think it's only innate. I think it's hard to teach. Because really the pitcher, you have to feel it when you're out there, and you've got to want to do it. Competitiveness is just, I guess, part of it. You've got it. You just got to learn how to channel it in a way. Yeah.
So what I think about is, you have a natural fire. And it's funny because when I ask people, in these interviews to kind of look at themselves, they're like, well, gosh, what did make me kind of the way I was? But I can say I saw the fire. It was competitiveness. It was that fun competitiveness. And how do you talk about, whether it's being mean, or sometimes I'll say to the girls, you got to have that little B in you. It's just a letter B. But they all start giggling right away because they know what that means. But there is that. It's kind of a self-preservation. Like in sports, I mean, isn't that kind of what gives our players value when they get out in the business world and in society, is that they've been through the competition? And if you don't have that natural competitiveness, you don't have that natural, I want to get you out. Well, I feel as a coach, we need to make sure that these other players that have chosen a pitch, they want to engage, they want to be successful. We have to look at what keeps them from being competitive, what keeps them from engaging, and then somehow try to program them. If they're not naturally competitive, we need to get all that gunk out of their head, right? And so that's not healthy. What do I do wrong, or what could happen? That's just normal fear, right? But to get them in a mode where then they're in some type of pocket so they can be efficient. I think it's always challenging. And don't you find that with your pitchers? Some of them have the fires that burn high. Some of them have fires that you got to kind of light. I would imagine both of your kids at home have pretty high fires.
Yeah, especially right now. No, they do. And I think about like some of these pitchers that I have, and there's some that maybe don't have all the tools, but I would throw them out on the field any day because I know that they've got the mentality just to want to get it done. And then I have pitchers who are just too focused on the perfection of pitching, and then they just clam up when you get in the circle. And I think that that's a big thing too, is maybe you can't exactly teach competitiveness, but you can help as a coach or a parent or anybody, you can help an athlete play a little more fearless. And I think, without I think of Sis Bates a lot. Like, Sis obviously really well. And her style of play, you can't teach that. She's got the fundamentals. She's so fundamentally sound. She is so good, but she makes plays on the field where you think there is no way you have ever done that before in your life. But it's her competitive attitude that she just figures things out. She's going to get it done. She's going to get the ball and she's going to figure out a way to get it over to first base before you get there running down the line. Like, that's the same mentality as a pitcher that you have to have. It's like, how do you, as a coach though, how do you create an environment that allows a pitcher to explore that? Because you have to be in a situation that you feel it so that you like it, and then it drives you, and then you kind of feed off of that. I don't think we do enough backyard ball today. Well,
okay, great point out. So as you're saying that, I'm wondering again, maybe a message to us is to make sure we do incorporate those games, pepper, wiffle ball. When you describe Sis, and again, knowing her background, she probably made those plays in wiffle ball or something like that, tape ball or sock ball. There's no technique. There's no anything, even though she's got great technique. It just gets you out. I'm going to get you out. Look at the rundown, right? Look at the rundown in softball. It's a little off topic of pitching, but look at when coaches try to teach the rundown in practice and they talk about coverage, which all of this is like true, right? But it becomes this like algebra equation. And then usually within 6 minutes, the coach is angry. The kids are all quiet. They're getting yelled at because the rundown. But yet, if you put 3 10-year-olds in a game of pickle, right? 2 people playing catch, 1 person in the middle, you're trying to get to the base without getting tagged and just play pickle. All of a sudden, you see the fielder running with the ball like, I'm going to get you out. And you see the runner going, you are not going to get me out. And then you see all those little juke moves that you see a good base runner have. But the best base runners are base running like they're playing pickle. So I think that's a great point about let's kind of engage them in some of those competitive games and get them to feel that, because gosh, what kind of pitcher would you have been if you didn't have the cul-de-sac? How would that have affected things,
Yeah, no, I don't know. That's a really good question.
Interesting.
Because it's just the way that I grew up, and it was,
Yeah. Different times, Amanda. Right. Different times. So how do you think your pitching has changed and progressed? Your pitching lessons, the way you give instruction, you're giving a few years now. So do you think you progressed and kind of tailored it a little bit more? Like, how would you describe that in all the years you've been teaching?
Yeah, I think so. I think when I was just getting into it, it was so much about mechanics. A lot of it was because you got a young pitcher, and I still really believe that mechanics are important for all those reasons that I said before. And I always like to revisit mechanics, even if we've moved on and progressed, just so we make sure everything's in line, so we're not dealing with things later on down the road. But it's definitely become more of a I try to make it challenging for them. I try to get them to visualize the hitters and situations and more of what you want the hitter to do rather than what you want your pitch to do. And so I find myself a lot of times saying, don't worry about how much it moves. Don't worry about perfect release, perfect mechanics. Don't worry about where it goes. I want you to throw this pitch like you've never thrown it before, through the eyes of your catcher, through the eyes of your dad, and let's just see what happens. And there's so much good you can find in that. They turn it up a notch, and but then it just gets them to start to explore their pitches and get out of the mindset of, oh, that wasn't a good rise ball. Why wasn't it a good rise ball? You don't even have a hitter in there. How are you to say that was a good rise ball? You don't even know what count that was. It could have been a perfectly great rise ball for the situation that you were in. So I find myself trying to put more situations and ideas in their mind that get them to think outside the box. Like, let's throw your rise ball where you would throw your curveball, on the outside part of the plate. Belly high, it's a left-handed hitter. Don't worry about it rising. Just throw your rise ball in that spot. And how often will you throw that in the game? Maybe not a ton. College level, yeah, you probably will a little bit more. But just to start to get them to understand that there are other things that you can do with pitches to get hitters out, and then you can start to become a little bit more competitive maybe with what they have.
So more situational work, and you're creating winning scenarios. And isn't it interesting how in their imagination they set up failure? Totally. So in their imagination, you throw the pitch, but in my mind, that wasn't a good pitch, maybe past experience. The greatest thing about practice and doing it yourself is you can make anything a win. Again, it's just perspective. So I think as instructors, that's something that we help players with. I think that's a really, really good point because, where players sit and how they experience the game, again, I'm trying to create more balance with that. I want to get into like your warm-up routine. So when you were throwing game day, right? did you have a routine from like the night before, the morning, or no, I pretty much got ready, and then I would get into your warm-up routine before the game.
Yeah.
How did you get ready to pitch, and at what point did that routine start?
So I really like to know as far in advance when I was going to pitch, not days in advance, but it would be nice to know the night before so I could wake up and start to get my mind right and start to prepare. I didn't have any like huge routines. I would say I was probably a little calmer the day before the game. I did a little bit more breathing. I probably started to visualize a little bit more. And then my warm-up routine, when I was in travel ball, it was a lot longer. I learned to dial it back when I got into college just because the length and the demands of the game, it was a little bit more. So I had to save some of that for in the game. But I learned to create a more comprehensive workout in a shorter amount of time. So the timing, I think, is really important for warming up. I would start like 30 minutes before the game. And I really wouldn't change anything from the way that I would warm up to do a bullpen, just a shorter amount. Do my little, my routine was like, oh, I think I lost you.
Helps if I don't mute myself. What did that start with as far as your routine goes and as far as your warm-up goes? Start close with spins, but when we're certain 5 minutes, like take me through that real quick.
Yeah, so I always did wrist flips, and I'm not one to say this is the way you need to warm up. Everybody does it different, but that was just something I'd carried over from when I was young, just the really simple 6 feet away wrist flip just to get my wrist activated. Then I'd go back and do an easy like little K just to kind of smooth it out. And then I'd go back and do some quicker leg drives, like a flamingo type of a drill or a side straddle. And then once I got onto the mound, I would quickly visit all of my pitches. And this is before the game. So way different than a bullpen. So it doesn't do us much good to do 20 rise balls, 20 drop balls, 20 curve balls, 20 screw balls, 20 fast or change ups, and then go into the game and think that you can do this when called upon. So especially warming up before the game, I would go back, do a couple of fastballs, spot even my pitches, rise, drop, maybe 3 or 4 of them. And then I get right into mixing them up a little and then do a couple batters. So, okay, right-handed batter lead off. If you knew who the team was, it's easy. You put that person in your mind and you throw a count to them. Number 2 hitter, do a lefty, and then you do that, get yourself, ready for the game that way. So you feel like you've thrown an inning before you actually get into the ball game. And so the total amount for that would probably be 25 to 30 minutes maybe, but then you roll right into the game and you feel prepared.
So you go into the game already starting the game.
Yeah.
Do the first inning. So did you typically enter games pretty strong in the first inning? Because starting a game strong or not having control in the first inning, pretty common in pitching, right? So would you say that's one of the reasons why you were pretty strong at starting a game in the pocket?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I think that first inning is so critical because you're setting the tone for the whole game. So if you know how it is offensively too, if you breathe life into a team offensively and they think they have a chance from that first inning, at some point they're going to try to generate momentum and it's going to work in their favor. But as a pitcher, if you get out there and you just hammer at them that first inning, don't breathe any life, you put them back on their heels, and now they're always going to be struggling to kind of, find a rhythm and stuff. So I think that first inning, you put your thumb to the throat and you just don't let off. And once you get to that 7th inning is when you really have to go for the kill. So 1st and 7, I think, are critical. And the first inning out there in the circle, you set the tone for your team offensively also. You let them know you're in the game, you're going to hold down the other team, get me a run, and let's do this.
I like that. That's the Amanda I like to pull out of there. I like that. So I think that's important. You think about how many games are won or lost in the first or last inning, right? Or in the first 2 or the last 2 innings or something. So kind of moving on there is let's go to finishing a game strong. What does it take to finish a game strong? And what's the mindset there? Because again, especially nowadays, shortened games for a lot of the years, coming up in grassroots. And now, hey, you are the pitcher and you've got to go 7 to beat this team. So what does it take to finish a game strong?
So I feel like in the first inning, you can be a little bit fancier with your pitches. The 7th inning, you got to go right at them. That especially because, it obviously depends on the way the game is, but the 7th inning is probably more important than, I'm going to say equally, it's not more important than the first inning, but that's when you really want to work ahead in the count. You want to keep runners off base. You want to limit the walks. You want to, throw to contact if you can. So the seventh inning, that was kind of always my thing, is it's not about the strikeouts in the seventh inning. I don't want to throw a lot of pitches. I want to throw good pitches, and I want to throw ground balls, and I want to get out in as least amount of time as possible. And so I think that's where in you're tired in the seventh inning too. You just, I don't know. I think that we start to kind of relax when that seventh inning comes. You see the end of the ball game, and then that's really when things start to fall off. So many games are lost in that seventh inning because pitchers just don't go out and just slam the door. Get that first hitter. That first hitter in the seventh inning is critical because, offensively, if you're behind and you get that first base runner on, all of a sudden you've got this newfound life that you think you can do anything. And that pitcher's not throwing as hard as she was anymore. You're seeing the ball a lot bigger. There's something about that final seventh inning, getting a runner on base when you're behind, that all of a sudden you think, okay, we're in this ball game, and that's not what you want them to be feeling.
So it's definitely a different mentality. And again, there aren't enough pitchers that are able to finish the job, right? And so it makes the game of softball very exciting. You go to national events and national tournaments when there's a lot on the line of bracket play, and you're hearing all the crazy cheers from the different fields. And a lot of times that's happening in the last 6 outs, right? So some of that is intestinal fortitude. And some of that could be, whether it's cardio conditioning, routine conditioned, that you have a certain process that stays consistent. I always see the consistency of the free throw shooting basketball player with 2 seconds left, dead tired, but the form is still there, right? So going back to that, and White had made a point about the proper mechanics, and the consistency of proper mechanics allow you to deliver the pitch over and over through a whole game's time. So I think that's important. Putting batters away. You were, to me, you were, I don't want to say even better when you were behind in the count. So, let's go back to jumping ahead first pitch. Was that a priority, a target of yours, but knowing that, look, 1-0, I still got you with an off-speed pitch. So where was the first pitch? I know you're saying seventh inning, maybe try to throw a first pitch strike or get an out, but the importance of the first pitch to you, where did that fall in?
Yeah, I think for me, I had a lot of confidence in my ability to throw a lot of pitches on command when I needed them. So the first pitch, it was really important, but to get that strike wasn't as important as for me to just throw an effective first pitch. So I wanted my first pitch to prove something. So if it wasn't a strike, it had to make her move, or I wanted to gain information from her, or I wanted her to think about it. It just had to be effective. Obviously, you don't want to fall behind in the count, but it's not the end of the world if you do, if your pitches are doing what you want them to do and you're being effective for them. For me, my changeup, I could pull it out at any count, so it allowed me to fall behind, and I still had a pitch to come back with that was unpredictable and that I knew I could dial up a strike with at any time. So I could use a rise ball at the eyes, first pitch, drop ball outside, second pitch, 2 balls, no strikes. That's okay. She's never going to expect a changeup. But if she's thinking it, I could throw a screwball. I had other options that I felt really comfortable with. So I think at the end of the day, it's an effective first pitch. So you can gain that information, get them thinking, and then, second pitch, same thing. But one of those two usually want to be a strike.
So definitely, target the first pitch, but maybe advice for pitchers is that, especially when you develop that second pitch, that changeup, and you create consistency with that, because Amanda, you were deadly. You could, again, it's like you could watch it with a predictability. I'm going to say 80 to, if not 90% of hitters, even if they somehow knew you would throw off speed behind the count, they still couldn't hit it. Your success rate behind the count was just ridiculous. And I could see that if I ever had the opportunity to dial in some pitches against a great hitter with you, I'm going to just waste 2, like you said, a rise ball way out, drop way out. And so what the heck, here comes the 2-0 change. So that confidence in being behind in the count, like your mentality when you were behind in the count, it was just another count for you to work with, almost an opportunity to fool them even more.
Yeah, I think so. You never want the hitter to see too many of your pitches, but if you can make the pitches look different every time, then it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I always saw it as I don't like to work behind the count, at least not consistently. This is not something I like to do throughout an entire game, because that leads to higher pitch counts and them seeing more pitches and more information. But yeah, it didn't bother me when I fell behind, because I always knew that I had the command to be able to come back with any pitch.
Tell me about the full count, the 3-2. The bases loaded, number 3 batter. Tell me about that count. How do you approach it?
So the full count is not a scary count. The full count's actually a fun count because the hitter's on the defensive, you're on the defensive, but you're both kind of on the offensive also. Nobody wants to they don't want to strike out. You don't want to walk her. You don't want to give it a hit. There's a lot of that back and forth chess game. So as a pitcher, we can't forget that they've got their own stuff going on in their head too, the hitters. So don't think that you're the only one that's got the pressure on you because it's a full count, bases are loaded. They're feeling the same kind of pressure. So now the target you're throwing through looks like this. So instead of having this, some knees to whatever strike zone, now your strike zone's like this, but you still go hard with whatever your best pitch is. Your best pitch versus her best swing is basically what it's going to come down to. But you throw it through the funnel and you let it move through the funnel, as opposed to, I don't want her to hit it too hard. I don't want to walk her, so I'm going to pipe it. You move the ball through the tunnel, and then you get a more effective pitch. She sees it like this, like it's a fat pitch, so she's going to start swinging, and then it makes movement. You get a good ground out, a little pop fly, swing and miss maybe. But I think we as pitchers get caught up in what 3 and 2 is, especially with runners on base, that we just get out of ourselves instead of saying, oh, this is kind of fun. I get to throw a moving pitch down the middle and just challenge up, because, I would much rather her earn a base hit and RBI than to walk somebody and walk that run in.
I hope people are hearing your mindset. I know I overuse the term, you think right, you act right, and you play right? But there's a mindset that you continue to describe that I just ask people to use it as a comparative, right? Just something to compare where their current mindset is, because it's an opportunity, the way that you look at it. I would imagine, however, whether this was conscious or not, you size up a batter pretty quick. There's what you don't want to have happen as a pitcher. We get that, how pitchers will think that. But you're competing. So what does that batter say? My gosh, if she looks aggressive or she looks anxious in an aggressive, anxious mode, meaning she's going to swing, just ask yourself, does she look like she wants to hit? Does she look like she's going to swing? Is her decision-making mode more aggressive than passive, right? The 3-2 changeup does not need to be a corner pitch. An aggressive hitter is not going up there looking off speed. And again, even if they know something about you, they still have to have a certain discipline. So the 3-2 change, don't be too fine with it. Just boom, oh, yeah. It's a deceptive pitch. But then also feel that batter that their fire's a little low, maybe a little apprehensive. They carry themselves kind of a little hesitant going up there. Boom, just throw a strike. Don't be too fine. Go right at them, right? So sensing the batter, big part of competing as well.
Oh, definitely. It's so much you can tell by looking at that batter's eyes. And this is where I don't want to go hard one side or the other over the wristbands or not, or what that is, calling your own game. But so much interaction goes on between throwing the pitch, receiving the pitch, coming back, and then watching that hitter. So when I come back to the back of the chalk line before the next pitch, I'm watching the batter. I'm thinking about my next pitch, but I'm watching her. I'm watching her eyes. I'm watching her warm-up swing. I'm looking at the way she's here or she's triggering, how quick she is. You can just tell in a hitter what their mindset is and what they're feeling. So much of that information I feel like informs what I'm going to be pitching that next pitch. So and it's a quick process, and I just think we need to get more used to like gathering information and executing, and so with the 3-2 changeup, I tell my pitchers here, I'm like, if you've got a good one, you don't ever spot that pitch. You throw for a strike every time. And I feel bad because I'm always like, okay, change up, down and out. Well, would I do that down and out? No, I would throw it right through the middle. Throw it right at your knees, right down the heart of the plate, because I know you're either going to swing at it and miss or watch it go by. But I'm not going to waste that pitch. So
that's fun for me because I saw that. Thousands of times with you. And it wasn't about a perfectly located. It was the sell of the pitch. It was everything. And, the only one or two, and again, it was a different environment, but I remember when Lisa Fernandez would throw her changeup in the USA games, and, you'd have crowds of whatever, 3,000-5,000 people at the exhibitions, and the ball would just come out of her hand, but you could hear the roar of the crowd before the batter even swung at it. There was just this, and you had one of those, what we call just devastating changeups. And so I want people to hear that perspective because, again, it's unique, and I absolutely love it. And it's not even that it's not that it's fresh because it's there. It's there in a different time of playing ball, but it's never going to go away, that the competitive spirit. And so, Amanda, I mean, from the start of kind of the mindset and, the warm up and kind of finishing all the way through. I mean, those are really, really good takeaways for our pitchers. And it's like, look, I've heard of friends or colleagues that have went to the big leagues, and then they get there and you ask them, what's the best part? I was taking batting practice in the stadium. And they go, no, it was having a conversation with a 20-year major leaguer that sat me down and basically said, this is how you do it. And that's really what I want to do, is impart this knowledge, your information, your experience with our players, because I still feel for pitchers in here. I feel like within the sport, we haven't equipped them enough, until they're out there more certain, more sure themselves. I don't blame them. I don't blame their coaches. I take the responsibility as an instructor. So working together on my crazy aspect of things and approach. And for me, I'm learning right now in these conversations more about the mechanics. We didn't hit on it today, but me, I'm always convinced we can function and compete and win without you doing things right. But no, it is really integrating and creating balance to everything. So really, really appreciate it. Is there any, what's one thing that you, just a piece of advice for pitchers out there right now? They've been indoors. Some of them have been getting their work in. A lot of them are worried, right? Take that worry. They're worried about recruiting. They're worried about, they're going to be rusty. What's your advice to pitchers out there, the best way to approach getting back out of the ball field here sooner or later anyways?
You know what? Just get out there and do it. Everybody's been in the same boat. Everyone's rusty. The hitters haven't been swinging. Get out there and just air it out in that first ball game. Don't try to be perfect. Feel good about the game. You're on the dirt playing. Like, this should be the best first game when you get out there of your life. The best practices. If you don't feel that fire in you for these practices when you finally get out there, where you think maybe the path you're going down, but this is an opportunity to maybe for the first time in a long time to throw without the judgment or the pressure. College coaches are going to be there. Opportunities are always going to be there, but I think just go out there and challenge yourself without fear of having to be perfect that first time you get out there, and just have fun with it.
Free yourself, accept whatever happens, and just free yourself and just express yourself, right? So again, cliches or statements, but when you find that pocket, it's a whole other ballgame. What are Addie and Jack waiting to get out and go do again? And I know you guys are probably slipping out a little bit, but my gosh, what are they missing the most?
Well, our baseball and softball seasons were canceled, as was everything else. So we've been doing a lot of drive-through birthday parties and been getting to the beach and stuff. So soccer's next. Soccer
and they're what ages now, Addie and Jack?
Addie's 6 and Jack is 4.
4. So I was going to say 6 and 4.
And they both love soccer. So
how did they react when I always said saddest words in the world were games canceled, right? I couldn't even imagine seasons canceled. I don't know what I would have done. So did they just kind of move on and go to the next little thing in their mind and just, they're in that pocket? Good.
They're just more worried about why they can't be in school. So Addie even tells me, remember, Mom, when I wanted a break from school? Now I want to go back. I'm like, oh, that's I know. We all want you to. Wow. But no, they're pretty resilient. Like, kids are resilient. They understand what's going on, but they don't really get it. So they're just rolling with it. They've been champs through it. We're all just trying, but man, I just want to get out and get on a field soon. Any field.
Sure. Well, if anyone's in Huntington Beach driving down Golden West and you hit a certain little pocket and you see the little kind of a roof coming off a house over there, it's just the Katchka house. They're just all kind of doing stuff in there and that loaded full of energy. But hey, tell your family I said hello. Really appreciate your time. Really good stuff today. I'll reach out to you again and we'll kind of do a follow-up and maybe hit another area because this was just pitching today. But it's always informative and we really appreciate it, Amanda. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.